Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're digging into a story you actually sent to us.
Yeah, this one's really interesting.
It's about a hydroelectric power plant in India.
Oh, interesting.
There's an insurance claim that went very wrong.
Oh,
And really, it all comes down to what caused a dam to collapse.
this is a great one because it brings in not only the engineering side of it, but also the contracts
Yeah,
and the insurance side.
absolutely. So we're going to be looking at this dispute between Soham Manipitlu Power Private Limited.
Okay.
They're the ones who operate this power plant.
Mm-hmm.
And their insurer, United India Insurance Company Limited.
And this one, I heard this went pretty high up.
It did. It went all the way to India's National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So to really get into this,
Yeah.
we have to go back to 2008 when Soham Manipitlu Power built their plant.
Okay.
It was a small operation. They were generating power for the government grid, and they had insurance coverage from United India Insurance from the get-go, from when they first built it.
Okay. So they had coverage the whole time.
The whole time. And this is where things get a little sticky. In 2011, United India Insurance actually agrees to an endorsement
Oh.
that expands the coverage
Okay.
to include some structures that were initially excluded.
Oh, interesting.
So that included the forebay.
Forebay.
Yeah. So think of it as like a reservoir right before the dam,
Got it.
the tail race channel, which is where the water exits,
Okay.
and even the power plant building itself.
So they added all this stuff in 2011.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
That's a great question, and that's something that's going to come back.
Okay.
Because this generous move on their part
Yeah.
becomes a real point of contention later on.
Okay. All right. I'm hooked already.
Yeah. So then we're going to fast forward just a bit
Okay.
to July 11, 2011.
Okay.
There's a power grid failure.
Oh, no.
And, of course, this throws the whole hydroelectric plant into chaos.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So the generators trip offline,
Mm-hmm.
and this sudden shutdown causes a surge of water into the forebay.
Okay.
And sadly, the forebay wall can't take it
Oh, no.
and collapses.
Wow.
So it's like this domino effect.
Yeah.
Grid fails, generators shut down, that leads to the dam collapse.
And a lot of damage, I'm assuming?
Yeah, there's extensive damage.
Wow.
So Soham Manipitlu Power, they act quickly,
Okay, good.
they report the incident, they start repairs right away.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing all this under the guidance of a surveyor who's appointed by, guess who?
But by the insurance company?
United India Insurance.
Oh, okay.
So they're following all the procedures, right?
It sounds like it.
And they do all these extensive repairs.
Yeah.
So they file a pretty substantial claim with United India Insurance
Makes sense.
to cover the cost of all those repairs
Yeah.
and all the profits that they lost while the plant was down. But after months of going back and forth, United India Insurance comes back and says, nope, we're rejecting this claim.
What?
Denied.
Right.
And they have a few reasons that they give.
Okay.
They say that there were faulty design elements in the plant.
Mm-hmm.
They say that the spillway, that's the thing that's supposed to handle excess water, was inadequate.
Yeah.
That there was a lack of proper foundation for the guide walls.
Oh, wow.
But here's the real kicker.
Okay.
They argue that these grid trippings,
Mm-hmm.
they're normal. They're not a covered accident under the policy.
So they're saying a grid failure is normal.
That's basically what they're saying.
But that's what caused everything else to go wrong.
That's exactly what Soham Manipitlu Power argued.
Yeah.
They very much disagreed with that.
I can imagine.
To the point where, in the repudiation letter, United India Insurance says, and this is a quote,
Okay.
obviously, the masonry wall was not designed suitably, and it failed on account of sheer inability to hold the water.
So they're basically placing all the blame on a Soham Manipitlu Power.
It definitely sets a tone.
Yeah.
But Soham Manipitlu Power, they're not going to take this line down.
Good for them.
So they challenge this repudiation,
Okay.
and they point out something really important.
Okay.
They point out that before the policy was even issued,
Mm-hmm.
the plant was inspected,
Okay.
and it was deemed insurable.
So it passed inspection.
It did.
Interesting.
So this is where that 2011 endorsement comes back into play.
Right, because why would you expand coverage
Right.
to something that was already deemed...
If it was such a problem.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
it was such a purpose.
So it makes you think, well, if it was insurable,
Yeah,
then its design and construction must have been up to standard,
right. That's logical.
you would think.
So what did United India Insurance say to that?
This is where the plot thickens.
Uh-oh.
Each side decides to call in their big guns.
Okay.
They get their expert engineers.
Interesting. So
So now it's a battle of the experts.
Okay, now it's getting really juicy.
Yeah.
So tell me about, like, what went down with these experts?
Okay, well, the insurance company's experts, they kind of double down.
Okay.
They come back and they say, yeah, there were structural defects.
Mm-hmm.
The design was faulty.
Yeah.
And they keep pointing to these grid trippings.
Mm-hmm.
They should have anticipated this. They should have been prepared for it.
So their argument is that it wasn't
Right.
unforeseen.
That it was foreseeable.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a genuine accident.
Okay.
But Solamantipitlu Power's experts, they weren't backing down either.
Good.
They said, no, no, no. The construction met all the standards and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
This collapse was due to something outside of their control. It was the grid failure.
Right. Right. Which
Yeah.
they couldn't have prevented.
And they've got these two completely different stories.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a he said, she said.
It is. And just when you think it can't get any more complicated, there's another twist.
Always a twist.
Remember how the insurance company is like, oh, the plant was so weak.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The plant had actually received government subsidies
Oh, wow.
after being certified as satisfactory
Interesting.
by, wait for it,
By?
the Indian Institute of Science.
Oh, wow.
That seems like a pretty big contradiction.
Yeah, like if they're giving them government subsidies, it
Yeah.
must have been okay, right?
You would think so.
So what happened?
Unfortunately for Solamantipitlu Power, the court didn't really see it that way.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
They ended up siding with the insurance company.
But how could they? I mean, that seems like pretty good evidence
Oh.
on their side.
It does. But in the end, the court looked at those surveyors' reports,
Mm-hmm.
which, if you remember, were done at the direction of the insurance company.
Right.
And they thought those were more credible and objective. They gave more weight to those than they did to, like, the government certifications from this well-respected institution.
Wow. That's really interesting. I'm starting to see how much these contract laws and these expert opinions, how much power they have.
Yeah, it can be a lot to sort through.
Yeah,
So it's pretty heavy stuff.
it is. It is.
And there are definitely some big implications that came from this court's decision
Yeah.
that we should probably unpack a bit.
Let's get into it.
I mean, it's almost like this throws the whole idea of insurance
Yeah.
as a safety net out the window.
Yeah.
You pay your premiums, you think, okay, I'm protected if something goes wrong.
Right.
But this shows that it might not be so straightforward,
It's not always that easy.
especially when you're up against this huge insurance company.
Yeah. They have tons of resources.
Yeah. Who knows who they're paying to give these expert opinions?
Right. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah. It really makes you think twice about what's in your insurance policy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not just reading it, but like really understanding it.
Yeah. Understanding the little details.
Yeah. Because this could happen in any field,
Yeah.
you know?
Huh.
It doesn't have to be engineering. It could be anything.
Absolutely. Like, how do you even challenge these technical assessments?
Yeah, especially that they're coming from these well-respected institutions.
Right. Exactly. It's like, who are you to say they're wrong?
It feels like this David and Goliath situation. where
Yeah.
You're just kind of like, well, what can I do?
Yeah. And
And
it's scary. It's scary to think about that.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, it seems like Solamantipitlu Power, they did everything right.
They did. They followed all the procedures.
But those expert opinions had so much power.
And that's really what did them in, right?
It seems like it. So how do we ensure fairness?
That's the question, right? Like, how can you make sure that these experts are
Yeah.
truly neutral?
Yeah. Should there be more oversight on the expert testimony?
Maybe there should be some kind of system in place where,
Yeah.
both sides agree on like a single independent expert.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So it's not just biased toward whoever's paying them.
Right. It's really important to get rid of those biases.
Absolutely. And this has implications, I think, that go way beyond
Yeah.
just this one power plant in India.
Oh, for sure.
Like anytime you have these big infrastructure projects
Yeah.
or these complicated engineering systems,
Yeah.
those questions of liability and insurance coverage are huge.
And especially now with everything that's going on,
Yeah.
like we're seeing more and more extreme weather events.
Yeah.
Power grids all over the world are kind of on the brink.
Yeah.
It's a big issue.
Yeah. So this case could really set a precedent
Yeah, it could.
for how similar claims are handled in the future.
It's a little scary to think about, actually.
It is. So I guess one positive takeaway we can say is that
Mhm.
this really highlights the importance of risk management.
Right. Being proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just about the insurance. It's about what you can do
Yeah.
to try and stop something like this from happening in the first place.
Like investing in stronger systems, having backups in place,
Yeah.
just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah. Like having a really solid contingency plan.
Exactly.
So it's not just about being insured.
Yeah.
It's about being prepared.
I like that. Be prepared, not just insured.
Yeah. And I think this applies to individuals as well.
It does.
It's a good reminder to take a look at your own insurance policies.
Right. Read the fine print.
Understand what is and is not covered.
Yeah. Ask questions.
Yeah, ask questions. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
Exactly. Because, like we've seen in this case, when it comes to insurance claims,
Yeah,
knowledge is power.
it is.
It really is.
So for our listener, this is a lot to take in.
It is. It's a lot to think about.
But that's what the deep dive is all about.
Right. It's not just giving you the information, but
Yeah.
but making you really think about it.
Yeah. And this case goes way deeper.
Yeah.
We're talking fairness.
Accountability.
Accountability. The role of expertise in the legal system.
It really makes you wonder if there are other cases out there where, people are going through something similar.
Yeah, where they're just totally at the mercy
Yeah.
of these big companies and these expert opinions.
It's a little unsettling,
It is.
but I think talking about it is a really important first step.
Yeah. Awareness is key.
For sure.
And even though this was a specific incident in India,
Yeah.
the questions that it raises about insurance, expertise, and accountability, they're relevant everywhere.
They are. All over the world.
So what do you think about how these issues might play out in other parts of the world?
Well, we're relying more and more on technology
Yeah.
all over the world.
Yeah,
Our infrastructure is getting more and more complex.
absolutely.
And I think the potential for things to go wrong, for big accidents, is just increasing.
And those insurance claims are just going to get more and more complicated.
Yeah. So we need clear regulations.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that these expert opinions are unbiased.
Yeah.
So that everyone gets a fair outcome.
And who gets to be the expert anyway?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do we decide who the expert is?
Yeah. And how do we make sure they're actually evaluating things correctly?
Right. Right. And that they're not just,
Yeah.
Saying what whoever's paying them wants them to say.
It all comes back to transparency.
Yeah.
If we don't understand how they came to their conclusions,
Yeah.
then how can we trust it?
Exactly. And I think this case is a good reminder that
Yeah.
you can't just accept everything you hear.
You can't take it at face value.
You've got to ask questions.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out, what's the reasoning behind it?
Understand the motivations.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if you have doubts, get a second opinion.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to push back.
Exactly.
So, I guess in the end, it's about
Yeah.
being proactive, being informed,
And being empowered.
and being empowered.
Yeah. Because like we said, knowledge is power.
It is.
And the more you know,
Yeah.
the better you can handle these complicated situations.
This has been such an interesting deep dive.
It has. There's so much to unpack here.
Full of twists and turns.
So many twists and turns. And I think we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah. I think there's still more to learn here.
Yeah.
So maybe our listener will be inspired to dig a little deeper.
I hope so.
Maybe look into this case even more.
Yeah.
Or explore other situations where this
Yeah.
kind of thing is happening.
That would be great.
And that's what we're all about.
That's the deep dive.
It makes me think about the government's role in all of this.
Yeah.
We've talked about the subsidies and the certifications,
Right.
but are there regulations about these kinds of engineering disputes,
Yeah, that's a good question.
especially when it comes to insurance?
So in India, they have what's called the IRDAI.
IRDA.
Yeah, it stands for Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority. And they're basically in charge of the whole insurance sector there.
So they're the ones that are setting the guidelines.
Exactly. They have all these guidelines to protect consumers.
Okay.
But the question is, are those guidelines enough?
Right. Because this is a very specific case.
Very specific. You need a lot of technical knowledge.
So I guess what you're saying is there might be a gap
Yeah, potentially.
between what the regulations say and how these engineering disputes actually play out.
Especially with insurance.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
So maybe there should be some more specialized regulatory bodies.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Or maybe panels that can actually provide neutral technical assessments.
Yeah, I think that would help a lot.
Yeah, because it could help these smaller companies
Yeah,
that don't have all the resources to fight these big insurance companies.
exactly. It would definitely level the playing field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in the long run, it would just make people trust the insurance industry more.
Absolutely. More transparency, more trust. Everybody wins.
So it's almost like this ruling, it opens up this whole Pandora's box of issues.
It really does.
Do you think that this could discourage companies from investing in renewable energy?
It's possible.
Because if they think insurance won't protect them,
Yeah.
they might be less likely to take the risk.
Especially with all the uncertainty in the world right now.
Right. I mean, grid failures, extreme weather events, those are becoming more and more common.
Yeah, climate change is a big factor here.
And those are the types of things that insurance is supposed to cover.
Exactly.
So if companies are worried that they won't be covered,
Yeah.
it could really slow down the transition to renewable energy.
And that's a problem.
It is a big problem.
So we need to make sure that the regulations are keeping up,
Yeah.
that they're adapting to these new challenges.
So, I mean, I think it's safe to say that this case,
Yeah.
it's not just about an insurance claim.
It's so much bigger than that.
It's about the role of expertise
Yeah.
and the power dynamics at play.
Oh.
And ultimately, I think it's about fairness.
Absolutely.
So to our listener out there,
Yeah.
I think the message is clear. Don't just take things at face value.
Question everything.
Think critically.
Dig deeper.
Yeah. Understand the motivations behind the information that you're getting.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Get a second opinion if you need to.
There are resources out there.
Because knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And the more you know,
Yeah.
the better equipped you'll be to face whatever challenges come your way.
And to make informed decisions.
And on that note, I think we're going to wrap things up.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to stop.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure.